Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. Now in this video tutorial I'll be showing you how I actually approach designing the front and the back view for this pirate ship. So we've already gone over the 3/4 front, the painting process for that, the side view. Now it's the front and the back view. Generally these two views are very easy to do. It's very rare that you'll have a much more difficult time actually doing these, although there is certain exceptions to that rule. In this case, I do have some very elaborate information I have to add in. So, although it is a little bit more elaborate, it's still not as difficult as the side view, or the 3/4 front view. So generally what I do is I do half of the ship, and I normally do start with the front view first. And essentially I work out the construction, make sure that that's accurate, and then I just mirror it onto the other side. There's a couple of reasons why I do that. First of all, it helps ensure that everything looks the same. It's also easier if I were to give this to a 3D modeler, because generally they'll only model about half the item at a time unless it's asymmetrical to object. Asymmetrical objects do make more sense if you're doing a character, but they are more difficult to model. They do take more time to do because you have to do each side individually. So generally what you want to do is, especially for a ship design, you try to make it as symmetrical as possible. So all I do is I work on the first half of the front view, and then it's just a matter of duplicating that, mirroring it onto the other side, so that I can actually start the back view. Now, both the front and the back view probably took about, roughly, I'd say about 7 hours in total. So it was much faster. It was about half the amount of time as the side view and the 3/4 front view. 3/4 front view normally takes the longest amount of time because it's a more difficult level of perspective work that's involved. For something like this, probably the most difficult portion was actually not the actual ship, it was actually the octopus that I had in front of the ship. Because this is an elaborate design, I had to do a lot of tweaking to get the structure correct before I was actually satisfied with what I had. Once I had that though, the rest of it actually came together much easier. And what I generally do find is that as I'm working, often I have to make small tweaks and changes to the design as I go, to make sure that it actually still fits with my original concept. Because as you're figuring out the proper structure, you'll notice some inconsistencies that need to be changed, just because it leads to a more overall appealing design element. So right now I've just duplicated that other side, and I'm going to actually start on the side for the back of it. So I do draw the line straight ahead, and then I'm going to remove any portions that I don't need afterwards. So I've actually added a thickness to this, and it's something I have to keep in mind because I have to do that to the 3/4 view as well and modify that to make sure that it is consistent. And because this is the front view, I just have to draw the octopus arms once. Now at this point I was looking at my original design, and although I added a curve in this, I actually realized that that part is actually straight in the original, but the bottom portion is the only portion that is actually curved. So I just went in and changed that to make sure that it actually fit with the design. Just adding the banister now, and working on the back portion where I'm going to add another tentacle to this portion here. Making sure that the perspective is correct is very important. It really does make a big difference on a view like this. I tend to use a lot of masks because it does save a lot of time, because essentially I could just paint in what I want and mask out any areas, and this is a non-destructive way of doing changes until I'm 100% satisfied with what I have. So that way I'm not wasting too much time having to redraw and erase portions as I go. So I'm just duplicating the mast and the platform because this portion is more of a lookout area, and I'm just fixing the perspective on that cable there. The back view for this didn't take very much time at all, mainly because it was only because the back was so much larger than the front. It meant that I didn't have to draw any of the front portion. So the front view was actually more complicated than the back view in this case. Adding the sail arms and adding the third one in there just to make sure that's all consistent. And additional cables. So I do have reference material to tell me where I have to put what, and this does help save a lot of time. So since I already have the front view, I'm able to essentially do the outline of what I already have and then work out the details inside of it. So at this point in time, I'm actually just doing a really quick rough of some of the basic structure for the balcony essentially. I will be actually erasing those lines afterwards once I have something that works quite well. So these lines are now curved, so I used the ellipse tool to create that, and that helps give it just a tiny bit of a curve because it would be slightly curved given the perspective and the structure that I have on this. Now this is essentially the back view, and it's supposed to be a little bit less complicated than the front view. I do want to make it look interesting, so I'll play with the structure to make sure that it's actually something that would be visually interesting to look at. And very similar to previous videos, I'm going to work on essentially one of these columns and duplicate that just to save a bit of time. And then once I have all this information done, I'll actually just duplicate the ship and mirror it so that I can get the rest of it. Now, rather than having to draw in those sails again, I know that the structure is actually going to be the same, so all I did is duplicate that from the original layer and added that in and masked out the areas that I didn't want showing. So this is the final image. As you can see, I have all three views. And it didn't take too long to do. It was actually a pretty decent amount of time. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.